out space. Okay, welcome everybody. Today is Wednesday, February 1st. Yay, we're in a new month. 2023. It is 10 a.m. Pacific time where we are. And it's evening time where Janelle is. We are talking today about values. I really enjoyed this process myself, but I'm excited to hear how it went for all of you. Did you all get a chance to watch the video and look at the worksheet? Awesome. Okay. So let's just actually take a moment to check in. Let's drop in first. Okay. So wherever you are, just have your feet on the floor. Take a deep breath. And just take a little tour of your body. Start with your head, start at the top of your head, and just sort of scan your way down. If there's any places that sort of catch your attention, maybe just take a moment to be there with it, not trying to push it away or make it change, but just recognizing the sensations in your body. You know, maybe internally you can say to yourself, you know, kind of, I'm feeling some tension on the right side of my head. Sort of moves down the back of my neck. And just take a moment in your own body as we go through this to just sort of narrate without judgment, without desire for change, and just notice. Notice what feels good and settled and comfortable as much as what feels uncomfortable. Now see if you can just bring your energy into your heart space. And as you breathe, see what color your heart space is today. See if you can breathe that space a little deeper, a little wider. Notice if it changes colors as you breathe. And just set your intention today for really listening as we talk about values today. Whether any sensations are coming up in your body, and feel free to take a pause when that happens. Just notice where it's at, what it feels like. And just be present for whatever comes up today. Allowing us to be curious and kind and compassionate to ourselves and to each other. And when you're ready, allow yourself to gently come back to present here. All right. Well, I needed that.
Yeah, right.
So let's do a quick check-in. How are you doing? What's up? What's new?
You want to go first, Janelle? You want me to go first? I knew you were going to say that. So let's see, where am I? It was a really interesting month. You both know what we've been through. And I'm still got ripples of, learning and wisdom, and, that was right and perfect for us and for me to go through that, which is hard. It reminded me that, sometimes we do need to go through the rough patches to really see clearly and to wake up and all of that stuff. So that's what I've been experiencing. And I think we as a family we've been through a little bit of a thing. And it just feels like we're coming out of it, whether it was my health, scare or Emily's. Emily just went back to dance class this week. And so it's starting to feel normal again around here. Like she's settling in a little bit. She's still nervous after 3 days of dancing again. And she's starting to realize that she didn't lose as much as she thought she did. So that's good. I'm using all of these things, Amy, with her. I was explaining, I think I said this to you this week, but I encouraged her to be curious about what it feels like to get back to class rather than just judging herself that I suck. She's just like, I lost it, I suck, and I'm like, well, what if you were just curious about what that tendu, how different the tendu is this time, or where your plies are compared to where they were, and just notice it and say, okay, that's where I got to work, and it takes the emotion out of it. So it's been helpful. I keep saying it to her, so I hope she's listening to it. I don't, you can never tell if they receive it or not, especially with Emily. She's so internal and she's so quiet. I have some new concerns about her that are up, that I'm trying to figure out how to go forward with. And it really is about friends, and she doesn't really have a lot, she's got friends that she spends a lot of time with. She's got her good friends, Serena and Sienna, and a couple of acquaintances at school, but that's about it. And she's not really like texting people and talking to them. And like, there's not a lot of, planning or doing anything outside. So she doesn't have a lot of fun right now. And I'm really worried about that. So I got to kind of sit with that and see, how much I jump in and how much I just mention and let her go with that. And I'm starting some new projects. I'm in the middle of I've had 3 days of the whole house clean out. Janelle, I don't know if I told you, I hired Dominique to come and stand next to me. And this has been the best week of my life. We did the garage and the guest room. And then yesterday we did my hall closet with my linens. Like I have nothing in my linen closet right now. Like we gave away 3 big bags of linens and towels and stuff. And the best part about it is that like at the end of the day, she just takes it all. Like we sort it and then it just goes, and I'm like, oh. So yesterday I had 1 box she couldn't fit in her truck, and I went down to the Angel Society in town to drop off all these board games, and as I walked up to put them on the table, I saw all of my vases because Dominique had been there 10 minutes before. And I had it was the first anxiety attack I had about cleaning out the house, was about the glass vases, which are probably half the ones that you gave me. You sent flowers to me, So it's like, why am I having it? These are just, but so it's like, so I'm having that emotional experience of letting go, and it's just feeling really good. So that, and some new stuff coming. So I'm doing pretty well. We're kind of in the middle of it. And yeah, so I don't know if that made sense.
Totally.
I hope it made sense. So a little wacky, like I always am, a little crazy and happy. Oh, and after this, I'm going to go down and start the book. So I'm going to meet with Reverend Christian today, and we're going to solidify theme, and I get to start writing. So I'm going to start writing. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. So
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Now
it's my turn. Where am I? I'm pretty good. Up and down. I had 2 kids home most of last week. Simon was home Monday. So I sort of yesterday was like completely brain dead. From kids home. I'm used to my time to myself a bit. And yeah, I think Andy and I are starting a resiliency course that they offer for military families on base, because he and I have found this move to be very taxing on our marriage in a way that we haven't felt moves to be before. So I'm glad that we're, I don't know, seeking some sort of outside help for it, because I think both of us were kind of like, well, when things settle down, everything will settle down. And just like, maybe we actually need some other skills to deal with this. So I'm hopeful that we can get something out of it that can help, because he and I are butting heads over like nothing, giant, but just all like anytime we disagree about the kids, it's a giant issue instead of a like sort of just small, like, I don't agree with the way you're doing this. It becomes very, very big. So that'll be good. And yeah, Adele's birthday's on Friday. She's super excited about that. I know. Andy's going to be gone much of February though, so that's also something to deal with. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
And I'll jump in here. And yeah, for anybody who's been in my life recently knows that right now I am 24 days away from my son's bar mitzvah. So it is
Wow.
completely all consuming in terms of just the little things that are left to do and the things that are over budget and trying to adjust, and things that are, just crazy how much more expensive things are 3 years later, doing almost the same thing. So it's been a bit of a stress on our family. And at the same time, there's lots of things kind of shifting and settling for the kids. Serena's doing great, actually. I will say, she turned 16 this last month, and she'll be taking her driver's test in March. She and I have been spending time together, shopping and doing things in preparation, and just her level of maturity and compassion has grown a lot. And
Yeah.
it's really a relief, because Malachi, who is entering adolescence, is going through a lot of turmoil in many ways. This has been a stressful time for him. He quit his one soccer team. He made it onto his school soccer team, and now he's trying out for a different soccer team. He's dealt with some sort of minor health issues over the years that I watch very closely. And very much like you, Janelle, when it comes to the kids, like my husband and I don't see eye to eye always about the way that we attend to their needs. So I was really grateful yesterday. We went to a new doctor for him, and we're going to be getting some blood work, and finally found a doctor who I feel like is on the same page as me, which is often hard to find for especially pediatric care. And Craig was there with me. Malachi was there. We were all in agreement and moving forward. So that felt really supportive. And yeah, just the stress of a big event really takes a toll on a family. So this, I'm just doing my best to take care of myself, to, I've been going back to dance, which has been a really both physically and mentally and emotionally supportive for me. I finally felt in my body yesterday during ballet. I finally felt like my hips weren't going to crack in half when I did a plie. And so I'm like, all right, I'm starting to feel stronger. And that's felt really good. So right now it's just breathing and staying steady and doing the things that I love, like this, and just staying present to all that comes up in these moments of rites of passage. And in 2 months, we're going to talk about rites of passage. So one of my favorite topics. And there is a reason, I think, for the pressure that builds during these times, because it's meant to open pathways for seeing what's before you in different ways. So much like you, Catherine, sometimes you have to go through these moments where you feel a lot of pressure to really understand what's most important. So yeah, so I'm here. I'm grateful to be here. And excited to talk about this topic and I'm really excited to hear sort of your reflections on what came up in this idea of exploring more explicitly our own values and our family values. And if this is something you've done in the past, or if this is like, oh, this is a different take on kind of really understanding who we are as a family unit. So I'd love to hear your reflections to start.
It's hard. It's still so hard, like how many times have I done this? I know this, I have the same exact sheet, you know what I mean? Like it's the same one that I use in my values workshops, It's like, and so, all of them, I love every single one of these. It's really hard to pick 20. It's really hard to pick 10. It's really hard to get down to 5, because I feel so limited on the 5. It's kind of like, so I usually get to the 10, which is usually 12. And then I stop. So I'm trying to move forward, and then there's some that I'm like, well, that's a given of you anyways. And I'm like, no, that's the point. Like I'm such a good Gemini. I fight with myself in these things, I'm like, just do the exercise the way you're supposed to. No, I'm doing it the way I want to do it. No, you're supposed to do it. So I just feel like it's hard to get it down. That's my challenge with it. It's really hard to get it down. So I feel like, and I've been working on this for like I think I printed it out on Saturday or Sunday, so I've been looking at it since then. And then I've been delaying and actually doing it because I keep thinking, okay, so I need to percolate with it a little bit more to really solidify it down to the 5.
For sure. Yeah, these are hard to choose from. I definitely was like, I could have 30 for sure. I
feel like it's Sophie's choice. Like I don't feel like I can't give away creativity. I can't get that off my plate. I value that. You know what I mean? It's like I feel like they're my children. I'm like casting out into the cold. Like,
right.
It's not that I'm not. It's just
no.
But it feels like
right.
that.
Right. Right. So we have these concentric circles of, and some of them I think relate to each other, right? That's what I do. And I'm like, well, accountability is kind of like integrity. So like which one of those two do I really value more? Like which one makes more sense to me? Right. So
like compassion and kindness, compassion is what comes out of being kind in the world. So I'm like, okay, well, if I do kindness, then compassion is implied.
Exactly.
I don't feel like
exactly. I do this. I play the same game.
It's been a little frustrating to try and figure it out, but I'm getting there.
Okay, good.
And I have a new word that I love that I haven't ever put any attention on. It seems like all of a sudden there's a flashlight, like a spotlight on wholeheartedness. I'm going to embrace wholeheartedness. I love that word. I've not ever really spent any time with it, and it feels good in the mouth saying it, wholehearted, and it just I'm sitting with that one just to kind of be with it for a while.
I really like that one too. Yeah.
I struggled with I have real trouble, like Catherine does this, like connecting my heart and my mind. So like, what are the ways that I behaved based on my upbringing that were values that maybe I didn't really hold? And so I feel like I struggle between like, which one of these is my real self? Like, is my value of love and loyalty, is that like my heart? And then my mind is more concerned with like getting things right and everything being just so. And so I kind of struggle between these like two parts of me, like which one am I going to listen to, and how do I reconcile the two parts?
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like when you were growing up, there were some values that were important in your family that you were raised with. But the question is, and this is why it's important for us to begin to have these conversations with our own kids, that we're not like, we can share what our values are, but that we don't put those upon our children. that
Right.
they are allowed to really understand who they are and what's important to them. Right. So this is a really powerful exercise for you, Janelle, because you're
Mhm.
right. I would encourage you to really listen more to your heart in this arena, because my guess is that your head is telling you what was expected of you. And if there were
Right.
values that were from your childhood, now some of them you may have embodied and really appreciate, right? Like maybe trust and loyalty and those kinds of things are really a part of your nature and who you are and what's important. Um, but the idea here is, how embodied are we in the values that we hold? How much do we all? How much do we? If there are things that we're like, this is really a value of mine, then we can check ourselves, like, how much am I showing up in the world embodying that value?
Mhm.
And how much are we listening and encouraging the embodiment of our children in their own values? Somebody's
Sometimes
upset.
only mommy does.
Yeah, sometimes only mommy can do that. It's okay.
I have it in my ear, so you can
Yeah,
keep going.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. So yeah, so this is a really powerful exercise for you. And I was also thinking, Janelle, that given what's happening with you and your husband, that this kind of conversation about understanding each other and what's like really what your core values are, because you two may be, even though you're struggling, you maybe have the same goal in mind, that you're coming at it from different value sets, right?
Yeah, I actually told him about it last night when I printed it out, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I definitely want to do this," and with our older girls, and talk about the differences and what that could lead to our, if we're coming at my oldest's behavior from two different value standpoints, that would create a lot of tension, and I'm seeing his behavior as being actually contrary to what my value is for that. So he was very like, yes, I want to do this.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So it's interesting when we have an exercise that really brings up this, you know, these questions or discomfort or like, oh, I can't decide, it really does speak to the fact that probably when we were growing up, our values were never really considered or explored or understood. And so it makes it hard for us to, unless we have diligently done this kind of work over the years, um, to, and again, they change, right? Because my pre-family self probably had some different values than post-family self, right?
Mhm.
Our knowledge, our wisdom, our experience shapes how our values, but I would venture to guess that most of the time there is a core thread, right? And this is where we get down to with our 5 core values. And you can have as many as you want, really. It doesn't matter. The idea here is that you get down to the sense of like, if there were nothing else, like, what am I going to stand and fight for, right? What am I going to really call in to my life and into my family's constellation to say, these are the things that are so important to me, that because we can't try to instill 20 different values into our children. It's not possible. Right? We don't have, I mean, we can, but you're going to have a wide experience of those instead of a deep experience of things.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And so I invite you to really also sit with the ones that maybe you say to yourself, I should have this value, right? The ones that we were raised with that tell us, this is the right value to have. Whereas when we really sit with each of them and the ones that sort of light up your soul, because values are a way for us to move forward in making decisions in our life, right? So for you, Janelle, I'm guessing that loyalty is a big part, because why a big part of your makeup? Because why else would you marry somebody and move around the world, with your family and do your best to keep it together if at your core loyalty wasn't a part of your nature and who you are? And you have to ask yourself, does that value fill me, or does it bring resentment and frustration and those kinds of things? Right? It doesn't mean that you don't value it,
Right.
but it means that you have to evaluate the value and how you hold it in your life to still fill you and be the stand in your whole, in your whole self of who you are. Right? So, and what I love is this idea that, there's the Venn diagram that we get to have with our family, with our communities, with our friends, of, how do we constellate around each other, and where do we find places? And this allows us as a family, right? So if loyalty is a family value for all of you, then it makes sense, right? Yeah, we all, like, loyalty is important. We're loyal to each other. We're loyal to an idea, and we will follow that and do what it takes to keep that in place, because that's important, right? Whereas if safety and security are values, then you have to ask yourself, are the decisions we're making in opposition, or how can we create situations that create safety wherever we are? This is our value. Then what are we doing to ensure that that value is upheld and honored and not compromised? Right? So all of these things are you look at this list of values, all of them are wonderful qualities, right? They're all wonderful things to, not any of, there's nothing on here that's negative, really, right? They're all positive and supportive and empowering. So there's no wrong answer. There's only, like, what's a hell yes for you? Right?
That's a good one.
So, yeah. And this, this practice it's confronting, right? It confronts the decisions that we're already making. It confronts the ways that we show up for ourselves and other people. And if there's one that you're realizing, this has been a value of mine, but I don't feel like it's really serving me anymore. That can happen with any one of these, right? We can be generous to a fault.
Right.
We can be in so much integrity that we don't have flexibility. We can have so much trust that we actually are blind to what might actually be happening and get hurt.
Mhm.
So there's a shadow side to many of these, not all of them, but many of these, there's shadow sides.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to share some of the ones that were coming up for them that they might want to process through, or?
Well, I want to share something aside to that, so we can, I'll do that after if you want. But what came up for me, what I'm realizing in having this conversation, and it was just kind of a, glimmer of an idea before, but it solidified hearing you talk today, Amy, is that I can clearly see in my experience how when I came into this family, when Steve and I got together and the girls were young, our older girls were 14 and 8. I can see that when we were setting up the family in the first couple of years, my values were not in alignment with any of theirs.
Mm.
And a lot of the rub and a lot of the difficulty that I had was because I didn't realize that. That's exactly what it was, is that I had a value on kindness and they did not. I had a value on, a couple of different things that they did not, all three of them, Steve included, and I think he wanted to be in alignment with what I wanted. And we've come to a very good place realizing that now that we're in alignment with our values now. But it really showed me, like, I was falling asleep last night going, damn it, why didn't we do this with them then? Like, why didn't I know this then? It's like so frustrating that it would have just been a little bit clearer to see, for me to be able to say, you guys, look, I value this, you know what I mean? And even for a 14-year-old and an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, like, I think they can understand a little bit more about, that this is important to this person. And maybe if we had each chosen 2 that we thought were important to honor for each other, you know what I mean? Like, it could have been so different. It had to be the way it had to be and all of that. I get that. But it's really clear to me that this is really important to get clear on, especially with our family unit right now. And I think we're pretty cohesive. The 3 of us are pretty cohesive. But it's still going to give us language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It gives us language and it gives us understanding, so that when somebody is resisting, we can be like, oh, right, their value is freedom. So the more that I ask them to stay put,
yeah,
and stay here with me and honor my need for safety,
right,
the more they feel constricted and want to, fly even further. So all that this does, it's sort of like these foundational principles that give us a platform to speak to our needs.
right.
Right.
And to understand each other better.
And understand each other better.
Although I do think I'm going to try and not be the pop psychologist here, because, with my years of pastoral counseling, that it also gives a pretty clear window into why people hold those values. You know what I mean? Like what Janelle was talking about, there are certain things that happen in her youth.
Yeah.
But, and so when someone's holding so tight to a certain value, I can understand that that's the time to dig deeper into that a little bit, to see why, what's behind that. That can be very helpful too. Not that I think we should analyze our partners and do all of that. I let the therapist do it, but I talk about it.
But you can be curious.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Cause there's another step. It's not just that they decided one day I'm going to value, safety. There's a reason why someone would value safety. You know what I mean? Like, there was a moment when they were not safe.
Exactly.
They did not feel safe. You know what I mean? And so those are the things that I think are interesting and helpful to understand.
Absolutely. You're right. They didn't choose that as a, that's why when I described it, our values are shaped by our experiences, our, the people who we grew up with and the situations that we're in. Right. Somebody who was neglected is going to have a very different value in relationship than somebody who had a very secure attachment. And so all it does for us is say, oh, I can understand that. And we can't, as humans, process or move through the trauma and identify these values as either supportive or not supportive anymore based on, until we are able to be okay in the eyes of people around us in that value.
Okay.
Right. So that's what a lot of therapy work is, when you do in internal family systems, which is a type of therapy, a therapeutic model, is this idea that there are parts of ourselves and those parts come along in response to taking care of ourselves. And we have to be able to see them and acknowledge them and not try to push them away, but really allow them to be what they are and acknowledge their role. And if their role doesn't serve us anymore, then we have to find other tools and other parts of ourselves to step up and take care of us in that way. And so that's not the job of the partner or the parent to do necessarily for the child. But when we can see it and recognize it and make it okay, not shame them for it, and that's what happens when we're not aware of this value as connected, as being sort of entwined, right? We have to understand that things are coupled together. Our values get coupled with experiences, and our fears or worries or things, the reason why we hang on to them is that we don't realize that they can be separate, right? We can be loyal and independent at the same time. We can be, we can be loyal and be sovereign at the same time. But it doesn't always feel that way, right? Because that's not been our experience. Right. So, yeah.
That's great.
What about you, Janelle? Anything else come up that sort of any words that really you were struggling with or need some reflection around?
I think I found the words that I was very drawn to are all, like I kind of compassion, kindness, loyalty, wholeheartedness, all of those. And it made me kind of reflect and like, do I need to be like looking a little bit more for like power, pride, like these like stronger words? Because I have found like I've kind of lost myself over the years with my children. And I think that over like the last couple of years, I've been really struggling with like, okay, as my kids become a little more independent, who am I? What is my worth? What do I want? And so I was struggling a little bit again with like, what should I want? Like, what's the right answer here?
Oh, the old shoulding. Right.
But just should I shift and like try to find, I guess, some more like strength in myself and not so much like, I guess more like outward words that were like and more like, what do I want to feel inside myself, kind of?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So
yeah, so it's
because I did it real quick because I was like, I need to like, because if I think too hard about this, I'm not going to be able to whittle it down. So I did it very quickly. And then when I stopped and looked at it, it was like,
Yeah. I mean, you could do this exercise weekly for a long time.
For a week, it'll be different.
Yeah, it might be a little different, but I think what you're hitting on is some really important things, right? That this is not a practice of, okay, I've picked my things. This is who I am. This is more like a practice of self-reflection. Why did I pick those ones? What does that really say? Are those really who I am? Right. And especially right now for you, Janelle, as you're saying, like, who am I now? Who am I now that my children are a little older, that I am having to really figure out what's important to me? This is actually a really powerful time for you to be doing this and feel into some values that you do want to embody. So some of these could be like your core values could be, these are the things like your core values are the ones like through and through. These are the things that, just it's how I want to show up in the world. It's how it may be places where you stumble a little bit, but it's really the places that you want to like, I really want to be this way. I really want to show up this way. And I know that I'm choosing it because it's not a shadow. It's not like the value that keeps me, in our social nervous system, keeps me liked and accepted and those kinds of things. It's really just the core of who I am, right? Because there's a difference between somebody who is kind because that keeps them safe versus somebody who is kind because that is just the core of who they are. Right?
Yeah.
You see you see the shadows in there. So so I'm excited for you both, and for myself too, because this is, I definitely chose some that are really about who I am wanting to show up as, right? Wisdom was a strong one for me because that word has come up for me a lot in the last couple of years in the transitions of people leaving my community, who I am, what I'm teaching, wanting this word wisdom keeper has come up for me in my work a lot, not as a person, not as a way of being like an authority, but really coming from a place of deep knowing, right? Of having things and life experiences to share, not from a place of authority, but from a place of wisdom, right? Am I always wise? No. Do I always show up that way? No. But it's a value that's important for me that I want to embody. I want to show up in the world as somebody who has wisdom to share. It doesn't, but that's like a growth edge for me. Right. But it's a value. It's something important.
That's one of mine too, Amy. And what I realized also is that I value the wisdom as it shows up in my life. It doesn't have to come through me. Right. So it's like, I really honor, like I'm showing up for your wisdom. I'm showing up for other people. Like, it's just, I'm interested in, and that's almost like depth, right? Wisdom to me is not just knowledge. It's not just learning, because that's a value too. I value knowledge and learning and all of that. But for me right now, it's the depth of that. Yeah. Which is wisdom. And so I just want to be steeped in it. It's kind of like the things that I just want to go take a bath in. I want to take a bath in wisdom. I want to take a bath in kindness. I want to take a bath in love,
Exactly. Right. Because there's so much information out there. Yeah. Right. There's so much information. And so I totally agree with you, Catherine, that idea that I'm only gravitating towards things that feel wise, that feel deep, and feel like like core knowing of things, right? That's like, who are the teachers? I'm not going to just buy any course that pops up in my feed. Like, the person that I want to work with is somebody, people that I want to work with are people that have deep wisdom themselves. Right?
Embodied it.
Embodied wisdom. Right. And so then I, like, both ways, right? I'm seeking it. I want it. I want to be around it. And then I want that to be
the channel of it. Yeah, exactly.
Be the channel of it. Right. So, yeah.
So I think I got down to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6. Yeah. So, compassion, creativity, kindness, love, spirituality, and wisdom.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's the things I just want to jump into the pool and swim around in. You know what I mean? It's not about how I, judging myself on them or anything else. It's just what I want to see more of and be more of in the world. But I'll tell you, I want to be, you were saying that, these are lists of things of how we want to be better in the world. Yes, I want to be all of them.
Right? Like, they're all beautiful things,
They're
right?
all wonderful things. Yeah.
Um,
So.
yeah.
So would you suggest we have the family do this? Like do their own version of it? Like do
I
it?
do. I think it's an incredible way to open the door for conversation. And then make your own Venn diagram, right? So have each of them take the time to do this. And what you might find too is that when you're listening to them or talking to them, just like you are now, like some of mine have shifted a little bit just in
Yeah.
talking to you, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
and none of it has to be hard and fast, but having the conversations, multiple conversations, like sitting with it, taking a little bit of time on your own and then with each other, that you come up with your Venn diagram as a family of where do we intersect?
Yep.
What are the few places where we, even if there's similar words, right? You can still, if somebody says kindness and compassion, you can say, yeah, those are pretty much very similar. I think we have the same, and you can clarify what the differences are and help, you're going to help your kids too to sort of find the words. This may feel hard for them. I mean, if it feels hard for us as
Yeah.
adults,
Mhm.
it's probably going to feel hard for them
Yeah.
to like, as they're figuring out who they are. But at the same time, like you get to help them like clarify what words mean and share your observations of what you see, how they show up in the world. Like, do you see yourself as kind? Like, I see you as kind in these ways, oh yeah, I guess
Mhm.
maybe I am a kind person, and when that becomes the thing, it's like, oh, right, I value kindness. That's going to help them, especially as they're navigating the world of school and friendships and things like that. Then the conversation gets to become, okay, well, we know who we are as a constellation. What's your friend constellation?
Mhm.
Where do
Mhm.
you see and observe the same values and things together, and where don't you? And when you're having conflict, when your child is having conflict, or maybe, for Emily, she may be having a hard time finding people who have similar values to her. So encouraging her to seek situations and experiences that allow her to have similar find people with similar values, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That you get to
Mhm.
help them process through. It's not like, oh, well, that's a bad person. It's like, oh, then this becomes a conversation tool of, it sounds like they have different values than you, right?
Yeah.
Like, this person is just always mean to me, it's like, what does that look like?
Right.
What do you think they're valuing? I know what you're about, we've talked about what you value in friendship, but is this a friendship? What does it serve to be friends with them? Where are your values aligned? And where are they not? And maybe this is just an acquaintance. Maybe this is just a friend who you do this one thing with, and it's totally fine because you enjoy this thing, but you don't have other values that align. So let's see if we can help you
Mhm.
find other friends who have similar values, right?
Yeah.
That's how we
Done that.
find our
Yeah.
long-term friends, right? I imagine, right, the two of you have some very specific values that overlap. What would you say your values are that overlap?
Janelle, I don't know. You have to come up with it. I don't know.
I would say compassion, love,
Loyalty.
like understanding, loyalty,
Yeah.
grace, like just
Yeah.
those kind of. But I love that
Humor.
there's also difference in there too, like that, just like, because
Exactly.
when I'm saying like, oh, this thing about me, and Catherine can be like, well, but this other viewpoint, I'm like, oh.
Right.
So
You make a very good point, Janelle, right? And that's the case too in our family constellations, right? Is that you may have values that align, but you may have other values that help create counterpoints to our values,
Mhm.
right? It's part of the reasons why we connect with each other. You're right. Like, Catherine and I have very specific values that overlap in terms of spirituality, in terms of loyalty, in terms of, compassion and connection. But we also have some other values that help us balance each other as friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Janelle's really grounded. I'm woo woo and she's grounded. You know what I mean? So when I go way out, it's like, hello, what about this? I'll come back
Right?
Yes,
later.
but you
I'll
you
come
pull
back
me
to-
up too.
Yeah. And
I
I'm
get
like,
stuck.
oh, hi, let's go, you know? So yeah,
Right. That's what we do for each other, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Andy and I were talking about that, doing this with, especially our older daughter, our middle schoolers. I don't know, just right now the connections work better and there's not as much tension. But with our older daughter, helping her understand, specifically with my husband, when they disagree so strongly, I
Mhm.
think him having put words on what it is he's concerned about when she's behaving a certain way could actually lead to some understanding between the two of them, of like, oh, dad's not just being crazy. Like, he really values integrity. He really values following through with what you say. Like, I know those are things that are going to come up on his list that did not come up on mine.
Right. Right.
That he's really butting heads with my daughter about, because he's like, well, she's not doing what she's saying. And so, but I think if she can see, like, there's logic behind it and there's feeling behind it, that he has a real root to it, and then how that counteracts to what she's feeling and what she's valuing. I think that could be a really healthy discussion.
That's what I was thinking, because we were sharing about this, and I was thinking that if he understands, she understands what he's trying to do, but if he understands how he's making her feel, that he's losing her, right? Like, he's pushing her away so fast, so hard that he might lose her. Like, then that might soften,
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
could hear her feelings,
Right.
So that's-
Yeah.
And if she's in her right now in adolescence, her values are probably leaning more towards freedom and like expression and figuring things, she's trying to figure things out, right? And she's going to make mistakes because she's got two parts of herself pulling. She's got the part of herself that's the adolescent brain drive towards novelty and experience. And she also has this desire for love and acceptance from her parents. These are at odds, right? And this is partly him understanding the adolescent development process, but it's also in her understanding that process, and that, yes, their values are starting to kind of be at odds with each other, but they probably want the same things. She wants his love and acceptance, and he wants her, because integrity is important to him, to follow through. And how can they make, and then so next week or next month, we're going to talk about agreements.
Oh, good.
So agreements follow values, because we can then make agreements based on these values of how do we each get our values honored and accepted and understood, and agreements of how we behave with each other so that we can take care of ourselves and the other person with respect. Right. And then what the consequence is if we don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Beforehand, not after the fact. Right. Which is always the hard one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's great. Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these all build on each other. Right. So
Perfect.
we started with brain and nervous system. So we understood a little bit more about the adolescent brain and what's actually happening, understanding nutrition and just sort of like how to keep them grounded and supported, what life skills are important. And then understanding values comes into these next phase of, values, agreements, and then these moments of recognizing their transition, as we move into rites of passage, we'll be looking at how do we kind of take these values and agreements and who they are as a human and help to usher them into the next phases of their growth and development, right? In meaningful ways, so that they begin to embody these values that are important to them and really understand their own place in the world, right? And the safety of having your love and support and acceptance of who they are in that process, right? So
Cool.
that's how we're gonna tie it all up.
So we go through March. Is
We
it
go
good?
through May. So May
Oh,
will be
May.
our last, yeah, May will be our last one. It'll be our integration. We'll kind of see how all these pieces connect together.
Okay.
And yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
And where is the video from last week's
Oh yeah.
thing?
it's-
Like, where do I go to watch that?
I sent it to you an email, but did you
Oh,
not
it was?
get,
I didn't get
sent- you didn't either?
Mm-mm.
It's in Facebook. The video and the worksheet were in Facebook, and they were also.
Oh no, not your video.
Oh, yes.
The guest speaker.
Oh, the guest speaker. Did you register?
Hmm.
I sent it out via an email to everybody afterwards.
I didn't get it.
You
Wait,
didn't-
what email would you have sent it from, Aim?
I would have sent it from the so when you registered
Yeah.
Yep.
through Kajabi through a workshop, and I sent an announcement from that platform. The same way, did you get the email that I sent you a few days ago with this video? And
Oh, there it is. I have it. Hold on. Yeah, I do have it.
you do have it?
Yeah, because it's from Kajal, whatever.
Kajabi. So search
Kajabi.
maybe Kajabi.
Yeah, it's
might
just
have
for
to
Amy
add-
Salonen.
You
Solana.
might have to add.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I do have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I somehow missed that.
I know I missed it too.
completely.
Yeah.
That one.
That's okay.
I don't
Well,
know where
okay.
yours
Thank
go.
you.
They must be going to spam. I gotta make sure it's.
Yeah, make sure you add that, whatever that email is, to your
Okay.
contacts so that it knows that you want to accept those, because that's where I send, you're in a community through Kajabi for this, and so I send announcements through that directly, and then you signed up, whatever you sign up for that's a product through me, then I can send announcements.
Yeah.
So you just want to make sure that you
Okay.
have that listed.
Thank you. This is great.
Oh, good. I'm
Yeah.
so glad.
Yeah,
Thank you
So,
very much.
all right. So yeah, anything that comes up, feel free to share in the Facebook group. It's been a little quiet in there.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's
Quiet.
okay. I'll just keep sending stuff, but
No, I love it. I read it. I haven't had much to say. So sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay. So feel free to share like how your process goes, if any, like you end up having it, and whatever your experience is, feel free to share so that people know how you're doing. And yeah,
Okay, great.
Okay.
so
Thanks.
all right, I'm gonna stop the recording.